Hiya, my name's Charlie and welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing a wrap up. I'm going to be doing it in like a chart styley, so you'll get to see I've ranked all my books from least favourite to favourite. I've ranked the top 10 books, and those are the ones I'll mostly talk about. I also will tell you, I'm going to every month I plan on telling you my least favourite book, and I'm going to be calling it that, the top of the flops. Without further ado, I'm going to start talking about the books. This month I have read 16 books, which I think that's quite a good amount. I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah, so I've got a reread this month, which is Flames, which I'm not including in my top 10. I can't even see where it is. Right. But yeah, I read that this month. I'm not including that in my chart just because it's not. That was my favourite book of last year, and rereading it, it would always kind of be number one, I feel. Well, for a long time anyway. So that's why that's not going to be in my bookish chart. I also DNF'd one book, which is The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which is one of the it's a Douglas Adams book. It's one of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, which that was one of the ones I was really excited to read, but for whatever reason I just couldn't quite get into it, so I've just put it down for now. So it's a DNF for now. We shall see if we get back to it. Right, yeah. So the other books I read, I got two books up from the library, which aren't in my top 10. I got The Dry by Jane Harper, which is like a thriller kind of set in... It's kind of it's not really thrilling. It's like a mystery set in Australia, which I have talked about in my previous videos, in my Australian reads. I'll link that down below. I also read Agatha Christie's The Sittaford mystery. This was set sort of like in the slow time. Which way, it wasn't super wowing, so that's why it's not in my top 10. Before I get to the top of the flops award, another book that I read which nearly made the top of the flops award, not gonna lie, no, that's a bit harsh, is Bottled Goods by Sophie Llewyn. This was a quirky kind of I think it's like it's a piece of flash fiction. It was on the long list for the Women's Prize, and it's sort of set in Romania, in communist Romania, and it's sort of a spy tale with magical realism elements, which for me, I didn't feel like the magical realism elements tied in very well with the spy story. It just didn't work personally for me. The cover's really beautiful. It's such a cute little book, but no, it didn't quite make the top 10, sorry. So, now, my top of the flops award goes to, which is the worst book that I've read this month, is quite a surprise to me. It was Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. I honestly thought when I started this month when reading this that I was going to love this, because Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by her was like one of my top favourite books of last year, and this disappointed me so much. The character of Leah in this isn't super likeable, which isn't in itself a problem, but I just don't feel like I don't feel like she has any character development in here, and the plot is super weak. I was just so disappointed, which is why it gets my top of the flops award. It's just so meh. It's so bland. I was expecting this juicy meal, and instead I just got this bland dish. So yeah, it wasn't good. Yeah. Either way, some of you guys might like this, but so I'm sorry, but either way, that's that. Now I'm going to. Ooh. Right. So then, it's upside down again. I read Stephen King's Elevation. This is my first ever Stephen King, so finally I've actually read some of Stephen King's. It is only a novella by him, and it's a sci-fi novella, sort of set about a guy who is losing weight, and he doesn't understand why, and even though he's losing weight, there's like a weird element that is happening as well. This is really quirky and really unusual. But because it's my first ever Stephen King, I was super happy that I'd read it. So yeah, that gets my number 10 spot. In at number 9 is The Good Immigrant, edited by Nikesh Shukla. This is an essay collection written by 21 writers and explores what it means to be Black, Asian and minority ethnicity in Britain today. So this was super interesting. There were so many things in here brought up that I hadn't actually thought of. Like it talks about, I think there's like about the sexualization. One of the things it talks about the sexualization of the Asian communities, and there's just so many other things as well. It was just really wonderfully written, and there's so many interesting like famous faces in here, which yeah, it was just brilliant. So definitely worth a read. Yeah. that's that one. The next one I'm going to talk about is Sarah Waters' The Night Watch. This is a piece of literary fiction. Sarah Waters is quite hyped on BookTube. This is one I was excited to read. I buddy read it with Simone, Kieran and Sarah. I will link their channels down below. And it's a story sort of set in the time of the war, and it goes back in time. So the moment that you start at, the people that you're with, the plot never really develops. So therefore, I feel like it's more of a character-driven story, and you get to know the characters as you go. So therefore, if I say too much about the characters, it's kind of spoiling it. So this was brilliant. So definitely highly recommend it. The way I recommend reading this is, if you can, definitely stick to the chapters, because when we were buddy reading it, we set out 50 pages a day, and that it sort of ruined. I read it like that, and it sort of ruined it for me a little bit, because really this is best. These are broken into quite large chapters, and I recommend reading it in that fashion, or taking some time and really reading it sort of in not one sitting. I wouldn't say read a 500-page book in one sitting. Well, not if you can. Well, if you can, you can. But yeah, definitely it's definitely one that you need to have more time to put aside for, so that you can sort of read through it at a, I would say, more quicker pace. You'll benefit it more that way. Do you know what I mean? This was really good. So number 7 is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseni. This is set in Afghanistan, and it's told from two ladies' perspectives. A lady called Mariam and Layla. Miriam has been promised off to this character called Rashid, and then you get Layla's story. And the interesting thing to me was about this is, whilst it's set in this horrible war-torn country and with all of these dangers going along around these women, the most dangerous thing actually was the things that are closer to home, and it's, without spoiling it, it's just so wonderful, so raw. The writing is gorgeous, and I can't wait to read The Kite Runner this month by him. So yeah, not an easy one. It's full of trigger warnings with rape and violence, etc., but definitely one, I think, if you can manage it, one to check out. The next one is a poetry collection, which is by Benjamin Zephaniah, which is called To Do With Me, and this it's quite a short little collection. It's one I think, I don't know, anyway. But yeah, it's really good, and it's the second poetry collection by him that I read, and there's one in here particularly about Stephen Lawrence's murder, which he was a young man who was brutally murdered, and there was loads of unjust things that happened to do with that, and with police, etc. So definitely one, again, I would recommend. In at number 5 is Framed by Maria Grech Ganado. This was sent to me by Kieran from the lovely Kieran Reads, and this is a poetry collection about, I think it's Maria's observations of the world. She talks about being an older woman and how aging and stuff, and it also talks about family, which is the thing I love the most. It also mentions different places in Malta, which I've heard Kieran talk about when he's part of the Bookwormies, which obviously I'm part of, and he's mentioned Valletta, and that's is brought up in here, as are a couple of other places that he's mentioned, which I loved. So yeah, this was such a wonderful collection, and there's a lot of heart to this, and it did move me a lot in places. So yeah, definitely deserves its spot at number 5. In at number 4, this is quite fun, Black Boy by Richard Wright. This is Richard Wright's memoir, up to a certain point, and this, you guys know that I read Native Son in February for Blackathon, and loved it. It's probably my favourite book of the year so far, and this was so wonderful, and it's sort of, yeah, obviously the story of him growing up, and it's, again, quite a lot of things you could recognise from Native Son. Obviously not all of them, but there are a lot of themes that correlate to this book. So if you've read Native Son and enjoyed it, definitely check out Black Boy. In at number 3 is Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. This was the first audiobook I've ever properly listened to all the way through. I got this from the library, and it's just so wonderful. It was about a school of girls that go for a picnic at Hanging Rock, and some of them don't go missing, and some of them go missing and don't come back, and it's sort of the impact of those girls going missing on the community and also the school. It's quite creepy and it's quite eerie, but I loved it. It's a classic piece of Australian fiction. It's definitely one that I recommend to you guys. Yeah, I definitely want to get the physical copy of this because, yeah, so good. So yeah. In at number 2 is a poetry collection called Let Me Tell You This, by Nadine Aisha Jassat. This was just so wonderful. It does talk about race and like gender, but there's also some poems about grief. That particular poem actually moved me to tears, which I've never actually had with the poem before that I can remember. It literally did put tears in my eyes, and it was just so beautiful. It's just, oh my gosh, this collection is so wonderful. I can't wait for her to bring out more poetry. I believe this is her debut collection. If I'm wrong, then I'm happy because then I can go back and get some more. But yeah, this is just so wonderful. And look how beautiful this cover is. And it's got French flags and everything. It's gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm so pleased I've got this. That was for my Mother's Day present, so thank you, Richard, and the kids. Number 1, dun dun dun. Like drum roll, please, people. I've got 2 actually, so it's a joint one. I've got this, which is Proud by Juno Dawson. This is so wonderful. This is a collection of short stories by LGBTQ+ authors, and also with artwork as well, and some poetry. And it's just so wonderful. There's some really sweet stories in here. This is, I think the premise of this is it's designed for LGBTQ teenagers, and I don't think there's that many books to my knowledge out there are in this fashion. It's just so wonderful. I just think the whole reasoning behind this collection is just so awesome, and the actual stories themselves are brilliant. Like I said, Penguins is one. I think I've told you guys before in previous videos. Penguins was one of my favourites, and also there was a Pride and Prejudice retelling, which was really wonderful as well. So it's just so good. So I highly recommend this. If you can pick it up, do. It's just brilliant. And number 1 as well, jointly with that, is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This was on my bookish poster, and on the surface of this, it shouldn't really be a Charlie book because it's very dark. It's very creepy, quite gruesome in places. There isn't a lot of plots. You never find out the characters' names. It's about a father and a son going along a journey along this road, and really, it's mostly that. But it's just it's how it's told. It's just so beautiful. So there aren't any chapters in this either, which is another thing that normally you guys would know isn't something that I would normally like, because I love my chapters. But it is broken down to nicely paragraphs. But there's something about this that really compelled me, and I feel like it's at the moment it's sort of sitting in my top books of the year, because if the writing is just gorgeous. Cormac McCarthy clearly is so talented, which is why he gets so much praise, obviously, and it's just so much emotion in this. The connection of the father and son was just profound to me, and it was just gorgeous. So 100% one of my books of the month, along with Proud. So yeah. So that's it. That's my top 10. Did you guys like this? Let me know what you thought of it. If you like this new format, or if you prefer me to go back to my old format, let me know. I can easily do that. I just thought I'd try something new. Tell me what your favourite book of the month was in the comments below, or your top of the flops, which was your worst book. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, I post videos on Wednesdays and Sundays. So if you're new, that is when you'll find me. Sending you lots of love. Bye!